Hello and welcome to video number 3 in my SQL learning series where we learn SQL through practice exercises. This is good if you just want to learn SQL, and it's also good if you want some practice programming in PHP and working with databases, particularly on a website. So in this particular video, we're going to be making this dynamically generated content page like a blog. So you enter information into the database and then it'll show up like a blog post. So it's kind of like your own content management system, but we're not going to go really deep into building something that you're going to actually use, because that would take, hours to create something that is really secure and ready to use on an actual website. With this, we're just going to get an understanding and practice with SQL and programming on a website. The primary focus in this SQL series is SQL, so it's not so much about PHP. It's more so to get you practice working with databases. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. What you want to do is you want to open Visual Studio Code or whatever text editor that you like to use. Text editor of choice. I created a file here called blog.php, and we're going to be creating a fictitious blog. So we need a simple template. This is going to be bare bones with not a lot of styling. So I'm just giving it a sans serif font, a main div. Alright, so let's open this up. So let's put some placeholders here. So we got the main div, and let's add a titles. I like to set my pages to auto refresh while I'm working, so I use meta tag to do that. So go here and refresh the page. Oh, set this to 30 seconds. So we want a place for the title, and just create one for date. So this is the date being echoed out. So say I want month, day, and year. Alright, let's also do a placeholder for the author name. So let's say let's put this here. So let's say author name and Nikki Weathers, and then let's create a div for the content. And alright, so this is gonna be the placeholder. The only thing I'm gonna do is style. So I need a class called date, and font, we're gonna give it a grayish color, and for the author name we're going to give it the same font size, but we're going to make the color just a little bit darker. Now we're going to make it a blue color. Let's change the color. Okay, so we've got a basic, one more thing. We're going to display inline so that they will be on the same line. And let's get rid of the center. Okay, great. We have a template. Now let us use this template to create our fictitious. Okay, so now that we have our template ready, we are going to use the read in CRUD to display information that is in our database onto the page. So I have to open up my terminal. Well, not have to. This is what I do to double check to make sure everything is working without using phpMyAdmin. The reason I don't use phpMyAdmin is because it takes an incredibly long time for the page to load, and I just find it faster to work through the terminal instead of using phpMyAdmin. Okay, so the database that we're connecting to in this one is blog simulation. So we're going to use blog simulation and show tables. Alright, so here's our table, blog post, describe blog post, and these are all the fields. We have a UID, title, pub date, author, and post. Now, in another video, we inserted data into this table by creating this page. Now you can't get to this page. See, form. So to insert data, you enter the information into this form, and it's processed by this file, this insert file. So let's see what data we have in there. I'm going to select the UID, the title, the pub date, and the author from blog post. Right, so as you can see, I have 2 rows, 2 records, and let's say I want to have it show up on this page. To show up on the page, you basically use the same command that I just used here, which is this right here, and you just use it in here, which I'm going to comment this out. This is what I use to insert, and this is what I use to read. So to read, you use the keyword select. So select title, author, pub date, UID, that's the code that we're going to use on this page. So first, let us store that query into a variable. So I just pasted it here. Instead of select this, we're going to use the wildcard, and using the wildcard selects all information. Now, when I was in the terminal, the reason I don't select all is, I'll show you why. Select all from blog, because it's hard to read. In the terminal, it's hard to read it. But in the actual displaying of information on a page, you do want to select all, so we use the wildcard. Wildcard means select all fields from blog post and go back here, and we're going to choose the first post. So we're going to say where UID to this equals 1. So select all fields from this table where the UID equals 1. And we need to connect to the database. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go copy this code from another file I have. This is the config file, which I explained in another video. And you want to require this config file because you need it to connect to the database. Then you want to instantiate PDO object. So I'm going to copy that from here, right here. If con equals, that means basically saying if you connect to database. So you could do this, right? You could just connect to database, but you want to confirm that you actually connected to database. So let's just put this here. If you can connect to database, then we're going to use this right here. We store our query into a variable, which this is completely optional. It just makes the code easier to read. Then we need a statement, and our statement equals con, this is our object. So we use the object that we instantiated, and we're going to query SQL. And after we query, we need to execute that. Well, for queries, we don't execute. What you're going to do is store the results in an array, and to do that, I create a variable called row, which is going to be the array. Row equals statement, which is our query, and then fetch. Now, remember, I have default options set, so it's going to fetch associative array by default, because that's how I set it up. And so this is what the page looked like before I set it dynamically. And to get the title, we're going to just create a variable and store the title, which is going to be row, and then the name of the field, which is title. And then to make this title dynamic, we're going to go down here and we're going to use PHP. This is the shorthand way. Title question mark equals title. The long way of writing the same thing is to write question mark PHP echo title. That's the long way, and so what you see. The short way is to remove all this and put equals, and it gets the same thing done. Now if we change this UID to 2 and refresh the page, you'll see the second post title right here. So I'll change it back to 1, and then, now remember, you could, if you want, not place this in a variable. You could just put this here and it'll do the same thing. So let's change this to 2 so you can see. And then you could do the same thing for the author. So then do the shorthand way, and I just pasted that and then change that to author. I cut it off. And if I change this back to 1, you'll see this changed and this changed. And then right here where the content is, you basically do the same thing. So you can copy all of this, and you need the field name for this, which is post, and enter. The post didn't change because it's pretty much the same. I copied and pasted this into the form, so that's why the post didn't change. But real quick, we can do something. So let's say update blog post, set post equals, this is where the post content goes, where UID equals 2. Alright, so change was made. Now let's go here and refresh the page. Ooh, I did the wrong one. Let's do that to UID equals 1. Alright, now let's refresh this page. So you see the content is here. And if I want to change it back to something long, just type lorem times 3, which gives me 3 paragraphs. And I gotta encapsulate them with paragraph tags. Alright, so we'll cut that, go back here, go up, and go back, and Control V. Alright, that didn't work out so well. Alright, what I'm going to do, I'm going to update this, and I do know if there's any commas that would affect it. And then copy this. So update blog post, set post equals where UID equals 1. Alright, so now let's refresh this page. And we're back with this. Okay, so that is pretty much it. But I'm not going to just leave it at that. You don't have to do this, but this is what I do. I like to store the values that are fetched into variables, and you should do this if you're going to be reusing the code a lot, because it's less to type this than it is to type this. So on a page like this, I would replace this with title here too, and there's one more thing right here, the published date. So like pub date equals pub date. So you can put that here, pub date here, and author and post right here. And you could format it a little bit just because it's easier to read it if you separate the HTML from the programming. So we have the title, the pub date, the author, and the post. And the one last thing that I wanted to show you before ending this is the UID. So UID, and the reason that you want this is because this you want to be dynamic. So we're going to make a conditional statement that says if, actually we'll use the shorthand if statement. And we're going to say is set get, and we say UID. If it's set get UID. Let's change this to say if it's set ID, then ID equals get ID, and else ID equals 1. And then right here, I'm going to change this to double quotes, and I'm going to change this from 1 to ID so that the query is dynamic. It's based on what you see here. And you can also make a link, which if this is WordPress, this would be called a permalink. You could dynamically generate a permalink, and this is going to be question mark ID equals get ID. So question mark ID equals get ID. Or you can even make it, you could use UID here. So let us do question mark ID equals 2. And there we go, ID equals 1. And that's how you, now let's enter another post. I have a speech that I memorized several years ago, and I'm just going to type a little bit of this. Now, I don't know if I'm spelling this right, but it starts with life is tough, and I'm just going to type this out real quick. Alright, so it's been a minute or two typing out a little bit of the speech, and I'm going to publish it. Alright, and now we have 3 articles, so let's go here to article number 3. Hey, why do I keep getting 2? Something's wrong with the keys pad. Alright, here we go. So that is how you fetch data from a database table, and then you view it in the page. And the next video, we're going to be practicing our SQL by editing content that's in a database, which I did do in this tutorial, but it was not the focus of this tutorial. So in the next tutorial, the focus is going to be editing, and we're going to be doing it in 3 different ways, the same way that we did in the first tutorial where we learned how to create in 3 different ways. So you can type it in, you can import it, or you can use a form on a website to do that. And that's what we're going to be doing in the next SQL tutorial. Alright, before I close, I just noticed a couple of errors here. This title that I have, something is wrong. Okay, let's take this and move this here, and then take this and move it here. Alright, so that should fix this problem up here. Great, okay. Next is the formatting of the date. So let's go up here. Alright, so we want to format this. So to do that, we take the variable again, and we want to choose date. We're going to use the date function of PHP, and we're going to choose the format, which is F for month, D for day, Y for year. And then our second argument is going to be string to time, and it's going to be this pub date. So first we took the row. Actually, what you could do to eliminate an unnecessary extra line, take this and place it in here. Alright, so the pub date equals a formatted version of this. So this is what it looks like coming straight out the database without any formatting. And now refresh this page, and now it's formatted. So I think that is everything now that we need to have a basic blog post created dynamically. So I'll see you in the next video.